Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin, joined with Taylor. We're getting ready to break down the 9-game main slate over at DraftKings. If you like NBA DFS and you like to win, keep listening to this video and also join our Discord, subscribe to the channel, and like this video. It helps us out quite a bit. And if we've helped you win before, you can even hit the super thanks below. So let's get into it. We go position by position, highlighting the best plays. We also talk strategy and highlight our strategy and our major flag plant of the day. All right, so point guard here. Scotty Barnes takes on the Wizards. He looks awesome with the 51-point fantasy projection. Honestly, it's 9 games, so like ownership's not as big of a deal as it often is. But he's not really that owned, even though he's been crushing 50+ fantasy points in each of his last 2 games. Really looks awesome compared to the other top options around him. Like Cade Cunningham is $1,000 more and has a worse projection. There's James Harden is $100 more, worse projection. So why don't you give your thoughts on Scotty Barnes?
Yeah, I mean, anyone facing the Wizards is going to be a prime option. He projects quite a bit better than RJ Barrett. Pretty much everyone from Toronto looks good tonight. It's one of the early games. It's at 7 Eastern, so the slate only goes till 8, so it's not really as big of a deal. Like, you don't have to wait on stuff in the 10 p.m. games, something like that. So I'm less concerned with locking up spots in the 7 p.m. games. But great play, 9-3, small forward eligibility comes in handy. I think, once again, if you're playing Barnes, you're not playing him at point guard because there are a lot more point guards than small forwards you want to play on this slate. So great play, really nothing to add. Like, I, as of now, would be pretty well over the field on him, and I think that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so speaking to that, just because Cade is right there in terms of projection, what's your interest level in Cade, seeing that he's not going to be owned?
It's okay. Like, the matchup against Indiana is not as good as it was last season. They've tightened things up a bit defensively, especially against guards. So Cade's always playable, like without Ivy, just monster ceiling triple doubles and stuff. But center is the position where I think I want to spend salary on this slate, and then Barnes like at small forward. Generally, I'm kind of paying down a bit more at point guard. We'll get to the value guys who obviously stand out. So I don't think you're wrong to play Cade. I just can't see prioritizing him over the similarly priced centers on this slate.
Yeah, it's tough too because I mean point guard is loaded. So like you said, if you're going to use Scotty Barnes, sliding him over to small forward does make quite a bit of sense. But before we go down to the value, like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, even Tyrese Maxey, those guys all look pretty good, and they're all kind of in the same range as Barnes, and they're all projecting for lower ownership. Are anybody there in that group that stands out as a guy you would like to pivot to off of Scotty?
I do like Irving if he's not going to be owned, which as of now doesn't look like he will be. The Pelicans have been one of the better matchups all season long. They've also gotten better defensively of late as they've gotten healthier, but no Luka. They have a bunch of injuries on the Mavs side. They've played some blowouts, but in close games, which this one in theory should be, I think he's pretty appealing. 9K is a bit hefty for him, but that's going to lower the ownership. I think he's a pretty good tournament play. De'Aaron Fox is 8K, which seems light for him. He's been kind of hit or miss lately, but I like that game in general. Sacramento against Philly on the second half of a back-to-back. Certainly some blowout risk. And then, like, Sabonis is the one you want to play here, but I think Monk and Fox, for that matter. I guess I can mention Monk. Both strong plays. The Kings just play their starters huge minutes. They're well-rested. 8K just seems kind of light for Fox.
Any concern that he is openly asking for a trade?
Well, I feel like he'd be motivated to show his stuff and, get the Kings a decent haul in return. So I don't really think that is a factor for me.
Unless he goes full Jimmy. You just never know.
I don't even know if he asked for a trade. I don't know. The Kings just seem to want to make a move potentially. I don't know.
Because he's a free agent in 26, right?
I think that's what I saw. I'm not concerned about it. I think you can play him with confidence.
Okay. I will say in that range, Jordan Poole looks pretty damn good at 7.1K, $900 cheaper, same projection basically. So I think between the two, he's the guy I like more, but no doubt about it. De'Aaron Fox at 8K flat, that is a little too cheap. But Poole looks really good. If you want to keep going down, you can look at Donovan Mitchell with no Garland. Tyrese Haliburton is always a good GPP play. I swear, every time we say that, we always are like, not really a priority, but a good GPP play, and then he goes off. So certainly he could do that against the Pistons. So he looks fine. As you go lower, Jamal Murray is a good price. Malik Monk, you already said, is a good price. Russ, though, if you're going to like, this is what I feel. If you're going to go down in the low 8K range, I just feel like Jordan Poole's the play over those guys. And if you're going to keep going down in the 7K range, I just think Russ is the play over those guys. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I need to fix Westbrook's projection. I feel like overall he projects well, but when he's playing with the starters, he's got kind of less of a ceiling naturally with Murray and Jokic in there. So I think the price is good and the matchup's good for Russ in what should be a close game against the Knicks. I'm not sure that the ceiling is like amazing, but 6'3" is fine. I think he's a pretty decent play.
Yeah. Now, even though that may be the case, Ty Jerome is potentially eradicating any interest I have in Russell Westbrook. Not that you can't fit him in elsewhere, but Ty Jerome is only 4.4K. Should get the start here with LeVert out and Garland out. Even if he didn't start, he would still be in play. But at 4.4K, feels like a core play here, no?
Yeah, I mean, assuming he starts, it's very hard to get away from him at 4-4. No Garland. Matchup's not amazing, but really no issue with it. Just a good per minute guy. I don't think his usage will be quite as high if he's playing alongside Mitchell and Mobley, but it's 4-4 for a good per minute guy. So as of now, I have him in every single lineup, and I don't think that's wrong.
No, I agree. I'm 100% on board with Ty Jerome. I do think I need him to start, and I will just say, with all these other guys out, I think Sam Merrill is also questionable. So somebody like Craig Porter Jr. at 3K flat could be worth a look. He should get some minutes off the bench, so not the worst total, like true pure punt of the slate. But yeah, I mean, Ty Jerome looks amazing. He's 100% a core play. As you go down more here, like Derek White could get a bump here if Jason Tatum is out. Right now, I think he's just okay at 6.7, but he would be a borderline core play if Tatum is out. I mean, I almost cemented that as a core play, to be honest. It'd be tough to go away from him. Same would be the case for Peyton Pritchard. He'd look really good. In that same range is your boy, Micic. How are you feeling about him?
My boy, I hate Micic. I think he's kind of a terrible play.
Full well, anytime somebody says your boy, it's not your boy. Every time.
He is over 5K. He's not a great, he's better obviously with LaMelo and Mark Williams out and stuff, Trey Mann not playing and all that. I just don't really think 5-3 for Micic is something I want to do on this slate.
No.
Not a screaming value. They do have KJ Simpson and Isaiah Wong
Mm-hmm.
who can play point guard. I don't know. When's the last time Micic made you pay and you're sad that you faded him?
No, especially at that price. It's just not, I doubt it's going to happen unless he comes out and puts up 50 fantasy points. It's just not going to matter.
If he goes Jay Sean Tate and, makes me look like a dumbass in the end, then that's okay. And
you know what, though? If you're talking about last night, Cam Whitmore was sick. I'm done with sick dudes. If these guys are actually sick and they're trying to play, nope, sorry. It's just you're out of my player pool, especially on a big 9 gamer. If somebody else is sick, Naz Reid tonight. Speaking of late stuff, because that's the night slate. But no, if Naz Reid plays and he's sick, I think I'm out.
Yeah, I think Grady Dick has got the downgrade today with illness. He's a sick Dick today, so not sure how that'll go. I think if people are going to play Micic, I will let them. I think Pritchard, even if the Celtics are in, I'd rather play a 5K Pritchard than
100%.
5-3 Micic.
100%. Yeah, somebody asked me right away in Discord this morning, is it a Micic night? I was like, I fucking hope not. I was like, 5.3 Micic? I don't think so. So, we're not in on that. Even Dinwiddie, Pritchard, these guys all feel way better than Micic. The price came up way too much. I don't see anything else down here that I have to do. Is there any other values at point guard that you're really a fan of?
I think you can consider Wong at 3K flat, but certainly not for the faint of heart. That's definitely a large field thing also. Wouldn't play him in single entry or anything like that.
Yeah, worth noting, Simpson has been getting more run than Wong, so I think Simpson, same price, same situation. Right now, they probably are just projected to split those backup minutes. But I think both those guys are viable if you're just feeling like stacking up studs and going 3K punts across the board. And like I said, Craig Porter Jr. too. I think the only other guy I wanted to touch on was going to be Stephon Castle. Same thing. Why play Micic when you have Pritchard, Stephon Castle, Dinwiddie, just better actual real life players in the same price range and not that bad projection. Castle is sticking in the Spurs starting lineup. Matchup with the Clippers, not great, but I just think you don't need to do Micic tonight. All right, over at shooting guard, Kyrie Irving is the top point guy there. Certainly agree with you. Don't have a problem with him at all. Price is a little bit high, but the projection looks awesome and the ownership is non-existent. So you certainly can play him. But if you're looking for the best play at shooting guard, I think it's going to be Jaylen Brown. If Tatum is out, Jaylen Brown is a lock. You can decide whether you play him at shooting guard or small forward, but he looks really good. Also, there's Donovan Mitchell. Projection isn't amazing, but with no Garland, obviously he has a higher ceiling than usual. And then what was the other? Oh yeah, well Trey Murphy's up there too. I'm not like super into Trey Murphy with all the like the main Pels guys who demand usage being there, in particular Zion. So for me, it's probably just Jalen here, and I don't mind Kyrie if you want to get away from the Jalen ownership because he's already projecting for 20% even without the Tatum news.
Yeah, they're playing Chicago, so it's one of those matchups that we love to target. I think Brown either way is a great play. Like 7-6, just like we talked about 2 nights ago. When they were playing Houston, he was like 7-6 or 7-5, and that's just too cheap for him. Boston hasn't really been playing their best lately, so there's a chance Chicago can remain relevant even in a game with a pretty wide spread.
14.
Yeah, well, no Levine, so maybe they'll struggle to score or something. So who knows? But I think Brown's good either way. I think Trey Murphy, I do have interest in just as a pure pivot that's not going to be owned. He plays a ton of minutes. The game should be close against Dallas, shorthanded Dallas. So don't mind Trey Murphy. Kyrie can play at shooting guard. Jamal Murray, Malik Monk, same guys we talked about at point guard. There are values here, though, if you want to go down. And I think paying down here is perfectly fine if you don't want to pay for Jaylen Brown or Trey Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, Devin Vassell at 6.3 looks pretty good. Kelly Oubre just gets monster minutes, and all the same guys are out from yesterday. I mean, there's even more value than that, but Kobe White should be back. He was at shoot around, and no Levine, like you said. Matchup against Boston's not amazing, but assuming he gets the full allotment of minutes, he would look kind of good at 6.2K. But then there's like legit value. You can look at Nick Smith Jr. again if you want. I would certainly prefer him over Micic, but I don't even think he's super necessary. The value I like the most is going to be Bruce Brown at 4.5K. If Grady Dick is out, I think he's okay at 4.5 if Grady Dick is in, because obviously Dick is not healthy or he's sick. Anytime a guy is sick, he might lose some minutes, like Cam Whitmore did yesterday. So yeah, Bruce Brown looks pretty good either way, but he looks really good if Dick is out.
I think he's good either way. Like 4 or 5 against the Wizards, guard forward. His minutes have been coming up.
Yeah,
probably a trade candidate himself, so it makes sense for them to get him some run. Dick out, he could start. Like I think he's an awesome play regardless. He's going to be popular, I would imagine. He's not projected to be as of now, but that should come up. I think he's a pretty awesome cheapie. I prefer him to Smith, but Smith is fine given Charlotte's status at the moment. I think if you want to fully punt it, you can look at Aaron Nesmith at 3.3. The minutes have been not great since he returned from injury, but he's climbing. Nemhard's questionable. If Nemhard's out, maybe he gets a few more minutes. Just a pure punt, not anything I really want to do with a lot of volume, but Nesmith is like, I prefer Nesmith to the backup Charlotte point guards or something like that.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they're projected for the same amount of minutes, and he's actually a proven decent player. So there's that. As we go down here, I think, like Jamie Hawkins is questionable if he's in with no Jimmy. He's okay. Duncan Robinson, especially if Hawkins ends up being out, Duncan Robinson will look a little bit better. Both those guys are 4.9K. Matchup with the Cavs, not great, but they should get okay minutes, and they're not super expensive. Not priorities by any means. I'd certainly rather play Bruce Brown or even Pritchard over those guys. One other guy I'll mention is Bub Carrington. I think he's been losing minutes lately. Still around 24, 25. His floor is bad, like right there with Keyshawn George, but the matchup with the Raptors is awesome. And he should get minutes, and he's not even 4K. So I think he's an okay value, especially when we're talking about all these Hornets scrubs. So he's okay. And I guess Eric Gordon, if you want to get crazy, just because he is starting and getting like 30 minutes a night right now with all the injuries for Philly. I don't really like him. I'd rather, if I was going to play a Philly value, I'd rather go with Justin Edwards or Ricky Council, whoever ended up starting. But Eric Gordon's worth mentioning just because the run he's getting, projected for 31 minutes. Obviously, he's very scoring dependent and not a safe play, but he starts and should be getting minutes. So I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I'm glad the Sixers aren't really showing up for me as values because I hate them and don't really want to play them on second half back to back. So like he's fine, but for other stuff.
Yeah, you can certainly just, if you want to, on a 9-game slate, you can cross off the Sixers entirely and not worry that much about them for sure. There are good plays, like Oubre at 6.1 does look good. I don't have a problem with him at all. And Yabu, they don't have Embiid or Drummond. They need somebody to do something against Sabonis. So those guys do look solid. And of course, there is Maxey. I just think if you're in a pinch and you don't know what to do with values, I think those Sixers value guys, they're in play. Like they should be in your player pool probably. Up at small forward, Barnes leads the way there. Tatum, we haven't talked about yet. He's iffy at the moment. What is his actual ailment? Is he sick or is it something else?
I thought it was his leg or something, but I can look.
Okay, he's not really one to miss games, so I wouldn't be that shocked if he played. But obviously, if he's out, all those other Celtics we already mentioned, and also Porzingis, they all get a pretty sizable boost. If he's in, he's going completely overlooked in a smash spot against the Bulls. So certainly in tournaments, you could entertain playing him. Not even 10K, pushing a 50-point fantasy projection and unowned. So he does look good. Certainly a direct pivot off of Barnes also. RJ Barrett in the same Raptors versus Wizards game, he looks great. I prefer Barnes, but you can't go wrong with Barrett except for every fucking time you play him. Every time we play him, he looks good in a smash spot and he does nothing. So don't come at me if RJ Barrett once again doesn't get it done in a really, really, really good spot, but he does look like a good play and he projects well. In that same price range, though, is Jaylen Brown that we talked about, and also Josh Hart is 7.7K, and he looks really good. Once again, he's going to go super overlooked. So starting with those top guys at small forward, which ones do you like the most?
It's pretty clearly Barnes at the top. I think the matchup, like Tatum has a great matchup, but the spread's wider. Toronto-Washington game, in theory, should be pretty competitive. So Barnes is pretty easily the top one for me. Love Bruce Brown on the cheap side as well. Barrett's okay. I do prefer Trey Murphy, Josh Hart, Jaylen Brown, all in that range. But Barrett's always someone you can get to as leverage away from Barnes. I would expect Scotty to be the chalkier of the two. We'll see how that actually pans out. But as of now, I would assume that. Not a whole lot else beyond the other guys we've already talked about, like at shooting guard. I think DeMar DeRozan at 6'5" is okay because that's pretty cheap and the matchup is pretty good. He's just been quite scoring dependent and not contributing a whole lot of secondary stats. So risky, but it's kind of a decent buy low for a tournament. And then I mentioned Neesmith at shooting guard, but fine at small forward as well.
Yeah, DeMar DeRozan could be a sign of the times. 6.5K. It is what it is. He is too cheap for his name and his ceiling, but it's going to be tough to fully trust him. I will say, yeah, Josh Hart, though, I think he's really, really interesting as a direct pivot off of RJ Barrett. I think Jalen's the obvious call over RJ, like you said, but they're kind of hovering around the same ownership at the moment. So I think you could play Jalen at shooting guard possibly, and then at small forward, instead of playing Barrett, you could play Hart, not really lose much on your projection, save $100 and feel pretty damn good about it, right? That like way, way less ownership. Not to say you can't play Barrett. Barrett's a really good play in a vacuum, no doubt about it. I just think Hart is a more compelling play and a way to get different on this slate. As we go down here, some of the same guys we talked about, but we did not talk about Josh Okogie yet. So Okogie is a value that I don't feel really good about based off the ownership. I don't know if that's going to stick, but 57% ownership projections gross. He's only 4.3K. He's been getting run. A lot of Hornets are dead, and he faces the Nets. So all that by itself looks really good. Like Okogie should be a really solid play. I'm a little bit worried about the ownership. What are your thoughts?
I'm not too against it. He's a good per minute guy over the past couple of years. Charlotte, again, is without several rotation bodies. He's already been playing a pretty decent role for them since he arrived in the Nick Richards trade. So 4.3 is like cheap enough to where I'm okay with it. Obviously, the floor is low. And if 60% of the field has a guy with a low floor like that, that's certainly someone you can consider fading or coming in under on. I'm under as of now, and I think that's okay. There's a pretty good chance that more value will pop up later in the day and kind of nuke his ownership. I fully expect that to happen based on the number of questionable tags we have as of now, but we'll see. I think he's fine, just kind of as a placeholder. I don't think he would be a core play for me, but I'm not against landing on him at the same time.
No, I think early in the day I opened it with him as a core play, but now that I'm seeing this ownership, I'm going to hope something else opens up because I'm not super excited about that. Good play. Like I said, just don't really want to play into ownership with Josh Okogie that much. Is there anybody else down here you see that is punt worthy? The only other guy I would see is Justin Edwards if he starts again at 3.9K. I'm okay with that, especially since he's not owned right now. I think that would be a nice little pivot away from Okogie, possibly.
Yeah, he's okay. Just another guy with a super low floor. Depends on how he's shooting, so not safe by any means, but playable again. Just more of a core play last night because we only had 4 games, and tonight we have 9, so it's a bit different.
Yep. Anybody else you see down there that you like?
I guess I can mention Amir Coffey with Chris Dunn out. His minutes have been up. He's played at least 30 in 5 of the last 6. So that's really all he does, though. He's getting cardio out there, not really doing anything when he's out there. But 3-7, you can do worse.
Yeah. The other day on a night slate when Chris Dunn was out, I thought Kevin Porter Jr. looked like a really good play. And he proceeded to play 14 minutes and get 4 fantasy points. So there's that. In theory, he should be a good value.
With Harden and Kawhi there, they really don't need Kevin Porter. So I feel like he's just kind of, if one of those high usage guys is out, then it's Porter time. If not, it's kind of like, he's not really in the rotation.
Yeah, well, I learned the hard way. So, all right, at power forward, we already talked about a lot of these guys. One guy we did not talk about is Bam Adebayo. He looks pretty good at 7.8K. Matchup with the Cavs is not amazing. But projection-wise, ownership-wise, price-wise, doesn't look that bad. I don't have a problem with them. Not a priority for me, but I don't hate it. I'd rather just go Josh Hart there, personally. Zion is forever a GPP play, but the minutes restriction, I just don't really want to do it. I think at 8.6K, that's just a little steep for me. I'd rather go play Miles Bridges at 8.2 or any of these other upper 7K guys that we've talked about that we like already. Or I'd go down to PJ Washington at 7K. PJ looks great again. So what are your thoughts here at power forward?
Yeah, it's not a great position in terms of the high end stuff is fine. Like I do like Hart, Tatum, obviously if he's in. Bam, I love that he has power forward now that they're doing a Khalil Ware thing, but 7-8 against Cleveland, not really.
I wish it was the other way though. I wish Khalil had the power forward eligibility.
Yeah, well, he doesn't. I think without Garland, Evan Mobley's played limited minutes since he came back, but he's 7-9. I don't think it's a terrible spot for him. Cleveland and Miami both play big. His usage goes way up without Garland. So in tournaments, I think Mobley at very low ownership is interesting. I do like the PJ call. Like the Pelicans really give it up defensively. The return of Zion doesn't help them in that regard. He's really filled it up of late with Luka out. 7K is quite a lot for PJ Washington, but based on the way he's playing, perhaps it's not. Siakam, similar play. I like the matchup for the Indiana bigs against Detroit. Siakam's rarely a guy I'd build around when they're fully healthy, which they essentially are, but I think he's cheap enough to be playable as well. Kuzma. So a couple games ago, Kuzma shot like a ton of shots, filled it up against Phoenix, and then after the game, he said he's done trying to fit in with the offense, and he's basically going to hijack things and do whatever he wants. And then he went out there and sucked it against Dallas and shot 3 for 11 in 21 minutes and got benched. So Kuzma's cheap enough to be playable at 6'2". Like obviously the ceiling's there, but
it's a ringing endorsement for playing Kyle Kuzma if there ever was one.
Toronto, for what it's like, Toronto's a good matchup over the course of the season, but over the last couple of weeks, they've been like the best defense in the NBA for what it's worth. So the Wizards look okay, but I don't think Kuzma is a priority by any means.
No, it's just a price thing. It's name and price. Kuzma looks pretty good at 6.2K against the Raptors in theory. Projection doesn't blow me away though. So I'm okay with if you land there, but like what's really different between him and Yabusele and OG and Anunoby, like they're all kind of the same play. At least with somebody like OG, you know he's going to get like monster minutes. So I think of that trio, OG is a little bit more appealing. But again, why are we living in like the low 6K range at this position? I'd rather go up to PJ Washington at 7 or go all the way up, or maybe look at something down low, like, of course, chalky ass Okogie. He's there. Tobias Harris gets a lot of minutes. He's only 5.5. Michael Porter Jr. continues to be a little bit too cheap, even though he hasn't really crushed it. Keegan Murray, man, 4.8K for a guy who plays a ton of minutes. I think he's a really good value at 4.8. So yeah, I like that. Any other values you like besides those guys?
I wouldn't say I like Derek Jones Jr., but a similar play to Amir Coffey, who's going to get minutes without Chris Dunn. 4,100. And Chris Boucher as well. Olynyk is questionable. If Olynyk is out, Boucher should play most of the backup minutes. 4K flat, good per minute guy. Matchup against the Wizards is phenomenal. So could be a Boucher slate at 4K.
Yeah, I was thinking, who's the other guy in that range? Let me check real quick. Boucher, in theory, with no Olynyk, is a fine play at 4K. I don't know. Like Justin Edwards, I think if he starts, I would prefer Justin Edwards just because he's going to play more minutes. But no doubt about it, Boucher's a really good per minute guy. Like the other day, I used him and he only played like 18 minutes, but he kind of got there just because he exploded in the fourth quarter. And the game before that, he definitely got there. He had 32 fantasy points. But yeah, no issue there for sure. He's fine. Derek Jones Jr. though, like 4 games ago, had like 50 fantasy points.
That was
like
a game they had no Harden and no
everybody
Kawhi
was out.
and no Zubats. Yeah.
So just letting everybody know, don't look at that game and think Derek Jones Jr. can do it for you, because he probably won't. He'll probably get you like 8, most likely.
Yeah. Well, hopefully there will be better value by the time lock rolls around, so we don't have to look at guys like that.
Absolutely. All right. So at center, this is, to me, and you said earlier already, this is where you want to spend most of your cash. The funny thing is there's a lot of value here with JV at 5.4. He looks really good. No doubt about it. Love JV. Musa Diabate, 3.7K. Even if he's coming off the bench, he proved me wrong last time. I said I didn't really love the idea of Taj starting and trusting this sack at 3 point whatever he was at the time. But hey, he's facing the Nets. He's 3.7. He projects well. If you want to play Diabate, you can. Not really sold on him being a core play for me, just because the whole situation is pretty damn volatile. I don't really like it. And the bigger point, which we discussed before, is the fact that there's so many really good centers here. Up top, we have 4 of them that look amazing: Jokic, Cat, Wemby, and Sabonis. So why don't you start there? Which of those guys do you prioritize? And then in general, how are you looking at center?
As of now, I'm getting the most of Towns. I think it's because he's the cheapest of that group. Denver, while better defensively lately, is not typically a team you're scared to target centers against. Like, obviously there's foul risk against Jokic, but if Towns can keep his hands to himself at 9.7, I don't see why he can't pay that off. He's just been awesome all season long, so I'm happy to play him. Jokic, don't really have to add anything. Like, awesome play if you can afford it. Hopefully more value opens up and makes that possible. Wemby has the toughest matchup of that group, but I would also expect him to be the lowest owned. And then Sabonis, with Yabusele playing center for Philly, that's a matchup we like to target. So Sabonis is a great play. I think as of now, like I said, Towns is my favorite point per dollar wise, but no issue with any of them.
Yeah. So Wemby, even though it is the toughest matchup of that 4-pack, in 2 games, he's averaging 61.8 fantasy points against the Clippers. So it's Wemby's matchup proof. He can get there if you want to. I don't think he's really the play, though. I think I'm kind of with you. If it's kind of Jokic or Cat, probably. I think Sabonis is really interesting if he's going to be completely overlooked. Like, there's nobody Philly has that can really contest with him. But here it is. If we look at just projections and price, it's Cat, right? But if we look at ownership, it's going to be Jokic for me. Like, if Jokic is actually going to be sub 20% owned on this slate, and people are going to do a lot of the value plays here, I think Jokic is just a money play. So yeah, and Cat just looks awesome too, no doubt about it. So center stacked. I do not see a winning path here without one of these guys. I think one of these guys
I think you have to play 2 centers on this slate. Like, I don't see a way around playing 2 centers.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is I think you have to play one of these premium centers.
Well, I think yeah, I would ideally do that. I don't think it's a must because it's a huge slate with like point guard stuff you can pay for, and the value centers, like we said, Pirtle, Diabate, Valanciunas without Sarr. Like, there's enough there to where you can build a winning lineup with cheap centers. You're just missing out on the expensive guys, and you have to hope that Jokic doesn't get 99.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's so many good options up top that it's pretty unlikely that all of them aren't going to get like 80 plus fantasy points. Like, 1 or 2 of these guys is going to pop off and you're going to wish you had them in your lineup. So that's probably going to be my strategy tonight. It's just I have to make the decision between Jokic and Cat. The other spot, I'm probably just going to eat value. It's going to probably at this point be JV or Diabate, but as you said, Pirtle looks really good. We can talk about the mid-range here too. You already touched on Mobley, Adebayo. I mean, even Gafford's price keeps
Yep.
coming up, but he also keeps producing. Like Gafford has been
And he's
smashing.
playing the Pelicans, who
Yeah.
don't have any rim resistance whatsoever. So, and
Exactly.
Zion will get a shot blocked. Like, there are a lot of paths for Gafford to get there.
Absolutely. Porzingis looks really good at 6.9K. Zubac even looks
Miles
okay.
Turner.
Yeah, Miles Turner
against Jalen
Duren.
Duren. So, like, Duren will not leave the paint, and Miles Turner is happy to not go into the paint. Miles Turner rained fire on Jalen Duren like last week in this exact same matchup. He's 6,100, and I don't think he's going to get played just because center is so rich. It's insane.
Yep.
Khalil Ware in the same price range against Cleveland. The good thing about Ware is if the Heat get stomped, he's probably still getting garbage time, as he did a few games ago. Not a guarantee, but that does give him multiple outs. Like, even if the Heat get wrecked, he should still have a path to getting there for you at 6'2", I think, on DK. So,
yeah,
love that. There's just an insane amount of centers. Duren, like you said, is okay, but it's very hard to get there given the other. Like, Valanciunas without Sarr at 5'4", I would just play over Duren.
Yeah,
But
Duren 43 against the Pacers last time. But yeah, I mean, even the JV thing too. If you don't really want to play JV, you could just go up a little bit to Pirtle, Jared Allen, Ware, Turner, like you're saying, because those guys they're not going to be owned. You got the premiums, and then you have the two obvious values right now, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess it just depends. First, are you going to pay for a center? If you don't want to pay for Jokic, Cat, Wemby, those guys, okay, then you can come down and live in the mid range and the values. Then it's like, are you going to eat the chalk with JV and Diabate? And you just have to make those decisions, right? I would just really trust what your optimizer is going to punch out and then make adjustments from there. But going in, like I'm seeing the top lineup that was produced earlier had Cat there. So I'm okay eating Cat because he's not like super owned, but I don't also mind making a couple tweaks to where instead of Cat, I'm raising my ceiling a little bit with Jokic if it's not like too restrictive to get there. All right. So speaking of all this value, is there anybody else here like down low, maybe in the Diabate range or the JV range that you feel good about as like a pivot?
No, like you can play Boucher, I guess, but I think you're just playing him at power forward. There's really no reason to play him at center and take up that spot. So I don't really think you need to go off the board. Like even Diabate and Valanciunas are going to be owned, but are they going to be mega chalk? Probably not, because you can only play two centers on DK and one on FanDuel. So I think I wouldn't care about ownership. I think I'm just going to play the centers that grade out well, which there are a lot of.
Undeniably so. All right, so that brings us to
reason to go off the board because like everyone who's on the board is not going to make them by default just because of positional scarcity, like positional requirements. I mean,
yeah. All right, so having said that, what is your flag plant of the day and your general strategy? Kind of think we know a little bit as to where you're headed, but is there one play that stands out above others that maybe isn't super chalky?
Yeah, it's a double center slate. That's probably the one strategy I would say with confidence right now will hold through lock. Something I would do if I'm building multiple lineups is to probably set an exposure cap for centers. You can toy with it if you want, but given how many there are that you'd want to play, I would consider setting it at maybe like 50 or 60 because I'm comfortable getting that much like Valanciunas without Sarr, assuming he starts. But your mileage may vary on that one. I think a flag plant, I guess I'll go Towns just because center's so stacked. He's not going to be like mega chalky by default. And I love the spot. I love the salary. The per minute stuff speaks for itself. So let's go with Cat.
Yeah, I think mine is going to be the other side of that game. It's going to be Jokic. I'm also in firm agreement that is a double
Way
center
to go
slate.
out on a limb with Jokic, buddy.
Well, he's unowned right now, 8%. Oh, also he's expensive. It's going somewhat out on a limb on a slate, which by the way, if you weren't fearful of Jokic going absolutely ape shit, you could really just go mid-range on this slate for the most part. Like Scotty Barnes could be your most expensive player, and you could feel reasonably good about your lineup. Because get the value centers, go get Ty Jerome, maybe even get a Kogi, and then you're just like living in heaven here, DFS heaven with the mid range or high mid range guys. They just look awesome. Even Maxi's under 10K. Kyrie's at 9K. Lots to like on this slate. So, okay, if we don't want to go Jokic here as my main play, I'm trying to think. I mean, he's just the one that stands out because we're looking at 8% ownership here. It's pretty ridiculous. I think the other one would be Scotty Barnes over RJ Barrett. I think right now the ownership is set towards Barrett. I like Barrett, and the fact that we're saying these things about Barrett now tells me that Barrett's going to get like 60 fantasy points, but he has been a letdown in these moments. Barnes has been a much more reliable player with a higher ceiling, and there's a lot of good options as pivots away from Barrett in the small forward, power forward area. Like Josh Hart is like the one that stands out the most to me. So I really like Josh Hart as a pivot away from Barrett on this slate. Even Miles Bridges only like $400 more than RJ Barrett. So that would probably be another stand of mine. I do like Barrett, but I think that is a pretty quick and easy and not super risky way to get different on this slate if he's going to end up being chalky, and he's facing the Wizards. So why wouldn't he be, right? All right. That is going to do it for us. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And by the way, we have a free Discord. You can come join, talk shop with us, get core plays leading into lock. And if you have questions about your lineup or just need general advice, if you're a new player, we're happy to help with those things too. And if we've already helped you win, you can hit the super links button below this video and throw something back to ya boys. All right. Thanks for watching and good luck.